Many more people than usual are trying to cross into the United States. The number of times U.S. immigration agents intercepted migrants attempting to cross the border exceeded 400,000 in December. The highest number in over 2 decades and up from about 350,000 in December 2022. Those numbers are largely driven by migrants coming from Central and South America, the Caribbean, Cuba, and Haiti. Though Chinese migrants are the fastest growing group of arrivals. Many of those intercepted at the border are turned away immediately under current policies. But those who are allowed to pursue their claims for asylum or humanitarian relief can either be detained or released into the U.S. While undergoing deportation proceedings that can stretch out for years, almost 300,000 migrants were released and enrolled in case management programs in fiscal year 2023. There are signs that migrant arrivals slowed in January, though U.S. immigration officials have yet to release the official count for the month. Daily totals had just about halved by the end of January from their peak in December. But such a decline is typical over the winter months. Is the border situation really a crisis? For most of the decade before Biden took office, U.S. Customs and Border Protection had 500,000 or 600,000 encounters with migrants at the southern border each year. Under Biden, the average number has been about 2.5 million a year, with 2023 being the highest yet. Republicans have complained about a crisis at the border for years, even when the number of arriving migrants was much lower. But the complaints got more bipartisan in 2022 and 2023, when some Democratic politicians in blue states and cities seeing an influx of migrants began complaining that they were overwhelmed. Their shelter systems, schools, and budgets were becoming seriously strained, with the challenge of helping so many needy people, they said. New York City Mayor Eric Adams led the backlash, claiming last year that the migrant issue will destroy New York City. Mainstream media outlets like the New York Times also now often refer to the situation as a crisis. Other Democrats and progressives have pushed back on that framing, saying that the U.S. is the richest country in the world, so surely it can muster the financial resources and compassion to help these people who have clearly been driven to desperation in search of a better life. But the crisis argument has won out in the White House and helped drive President Biden's effort to make major border policy concessions to the GOP, in hopes of striking a bipartisan border policy deal. Unauthorized immigration. It depends on whom you're asking. Controversies over unauthorized immigration have roiled American politics for decades, with conservatives regularly complaining that too many people were coming in illegally. Some complaints are false or exaggerated, that unauthorized immigrants lower Americans' wages, or take their jobs, or that they're more likely to commit crimes. They're less likely. Some objections are based on pure bigotry or xenophobia, and some are more practical, that it's simply disruptive, difficult, and expensive to deal with a huge inflow of migrants to your area. Progressives have in recent years typically argued that such complaints are exaggerated, or simply didn't give them much priority. They argue that these migrants typically come with nothing, and risk everything for a shot at a better life, that they make America better, and that there's a moral imperative to help them. During the Trump presidency especially, the Democratic Party embraced openness to immigration to differentiate themselves from the president's bigotry and cruelty. In this House, we believe no human is illegal. The yard signs read, "We're a nation that says, if you want to flee, and you're fleeing oppression, you should come," Biden said while running for president in 2019. But since Biden took office, a few things have changed. The numbers went way up. A whole lot of people are coming to the border and trying to gain entry to the United States, more than have been coming for many years, leading to many chaotic-looking scenes at the border. Some leading Democrats in blue states and cities began saying this surge in arrivals was causing serious strain on their government and budgets. And perhaps most importantly, the Biden administration began to fear that the issue was hurting them politically. Why are so many migrants coming to the U.S. now? The new migrants are coming from a variety of places, most notably Venezuela, but also elsewhere in Central and South America, and even China. Many make a long and arduous land journey passing through several countries. after paying an increasingly sophisticated people smuggling operation linked to cartels. There are two competing narratives on why this massive surge has happened. Progressives often prefer to emphasize what are known as the push factors, the conditions that drive migrants to leave their home countries, like the catastrophic collapse of Venezuela's economy and degradation of conditions in Nicaragua and Haiti. Crises like these, they argue, have simply gotten worse in recent years, both in the region and around the world, spurring more people to take the risk of emigrating to the US in search of a better life. So progressives tend to argue that harsh border crackdowns and efforts at deterrence, in addition to being cruel and immoral, won't work, since the true root cause lies in migrants' home countries. In contrast, conservatives emphasize the pull factors, arguing that there are specific features of US and Biden administration policy and messaging that are driving the surge. People are mainly coming, they say, because they've heard that, with the way our system is set up, they have a pretty good shot at getting in. They know, for instance, that there's a good chance that if they make an asylum request, they'll be released into the US while their claims are being adjudicated, a process that can take years. They argue that with tougher policies of more detention, less leniency, and less generosity, fewer migrants will want to come. Why are New York and other cities struggling so much to meet migrants' needs? The recent surge in the number of migrants coming from the southern border into big cities has overwhelmed already strained services, including shelter, legal aid, and healthcare, leading state and local leaders to put pressure on the federal government to intervene. New York, for example, has attracted more than 190,000 migrants since 2022. The city has a right to shelter law that requires it to provide a bed for anybody seeking shelter, regardless of citizenship status, resulting in makeshift shelters at churches, gym, and closed-down schools, and offices to help house the growing migrant population. What has made this particular migration wave more financially costly for cities than past eras of mass migration is a sharp increase in the number of families with children, and the fact that many of the people coming to the United States don't have family or friends who already live here and can help them settle in. The migrants aren't necessarily posing new problems for cities, but instead further exposing long-standing ones, including the high cost of housing, and because Congress has significantly limited non-citizens' access to federal social programs such as food stamps and Medicaid over the years. Local and state governments are having trouble cobbling together enough money to cover the high financial costs of supporting migrants, many of whom have not been granted work authorization by the federal government. As a result, many migrant families have fallen through the cracks and have been struggling with homelessness.